Hi folks, today we've got a succulent that is pretty in pink. Kind of a purpley pink, but like pretty and purpley pink doesn't really roll off the tongue. Anyway, this is Perle von Nurnberg, and I really like it because it's such a distinctive cultivar. You can really tell from its colors and its leaf shape exactly what it is. And it's a hybrid. It's a cultivar named after a German city, and it was hybridized back in the 1930s from a plant called Echeveria metallica and one of these, an Echeveria elegans. And it has stuck around and stayed very popular since the 1930s, not only because it's just phenomenally gorgeous and elegant, but because it's a really good grower. So I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to grow your very own Perle von Nurnberg. If you're looking for a classic succulent rosette, there's not much that's more elegant than Perle von Nurnberg. It's got these really cool spade-shaped leaves to it, and the whole thing is coated in this natural powdery wax. It's called epicuticular wax or farina, and it's giving the whole thing a really nice pastel or matte finish to it, but it's also serving a purpose for the plant. It actually acts like a natural sunscreen, and it protects the leaves when they're in full sun, which is super important for a plant that loves to be out on cliff sides in direct sun. And if you're lucky enough, you can find a variegated sport of this plant. So this is a kind of genetic mutation. And uniquely for Perle von Nurnberg, when it variegates like this, it gets a whole new cultivar name. So this little buddy is Echeveria rainbow. Lack of sunlight is the most common challenge that I see people have with this plant. And when it's not getting enough sunlight, what starts to happen, like this little friend here that I have intentionally starved of light, so sad, you can see its leaves are starting to open up a little bit. They're starting to spread out. They don't have that nice, tight, compact form like these healthy ones do. And it's trying to open up and absorb as much light as it possibly can. And you'll see the colors are also starting to fade. They can fade sometimes more to green tones or all the way into white, like this one here. It's just gone sort of pale pink at the moment. And the next step that you would see this go through is that its stem is going to start stretching really tall as it's out there looking for more sunlight. And so it's going to get that tall stem with lots of big gaps between its leaves. So if you want to grow this one indoors, I highly recommend keeping it on a south-facing windowsill, if you're in the northern hemisphere, or under grow lights. And if you do want to go the grow lights route, there'll be a link in the description with absolutely everything you could ever want to know about succulent grow lights. Whenever you get a new plant, it's really important to repot it in a fresh container and fresh soil. Now, with a drought-tolerant beauty like Perle here, it's really important that both the pot and the soil are well draining, and that's going to help prevent rot. So it's definitely easiest when you're picking a pot if you go with something that already has a hole in the bottom. And for soil, something like a bagged cactus and succulent soil is good as long as you add an equal volume of a mineral grit. So that could be something like pumice, perlite, coarse sand, what have you. Or if you want something that is already gritty enough and doesn't need additives, I would highly recommend bonsai jack soil, which you can find linked below. It's a very gritty, rocky, lovely succulent mix. And if you want any more information on succulent soil, definitely go check out our video on it. And if videos like that and this are helpful to you, I invite you to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss all of the future succulent projects that we are cooking up. A lot of people wonder how often they need to water a succulent like this. And the thing is, succulents do not love a really strict watering schedule, like once a week, every week, just because their water needs vary a lot depending on your environmental conditions and even the time of year. But in general, we are going to use a soak and dry method for these buddies. So what that looks like is watering your plant deeply enough. So I'm going to try to get in directly to the soil here. And I'm soaking it so that the soil is fully saturated and water is going to run out the drainage hole at the bottom, just like that, so I know it's fully soaked. And at this point, I'm gonna let this dry out. So I'm not gonna water again until the soil is completely dry and feels dry all the way down at that drainage hole. And the leaves will show me when they're thirsty. A, by going a little bit flexible so they won't be quite so turgid like this, and also sometimes they'll get a little bit of a wrinkle to them. So that's my cue that it's time to soak it again. The pests and diseases that can sometimes affect succulents tend to thrive in wetter environments, so the easiest thing is to just prevent them in the first place by keeping your plant in a sunny location with good airflow, only watering it when it displays signs of thirst, and keeping it in that well-draining pot and soil. But if you do see any evidence of bugs, the most common one you'll see is called mealybug, and it looks like these little fluff of white cotton just tucked in between the crevices of the leaves. Now, fortunately, mealybug and other pests can all be treated with isopropyl alcohol from the drugstore. Now, this is usually sold at 70% strength, and it can be used as is, just like that, without dilution. So what that's gonna look like is I'm just gonna really thoroughly spray my plant, and I'm gonna make sure to get into all those nooks and crannies where little buggies might be hiding. And once I've done that, I'm gonna repeat that every day until I see no more evidence of bugs. Succulents are usually grown for their interesting foliage, but Perle von Nurnberg does produce a pretty little flower. Now, here at Mountain Crest, it tends to bloom in the summer, and when it does, it shoots up this tall bloom stalk, and it kind of arches over, and it's covered in these pretty little pink flowers. A mature Perle von Nurnberg can reach about 6 to 7 inches in diameter, and at that point, like a lot of echeveria do, it's gonna start losing its lower leaves, like this one right here, and as they come off, it's gonna start elongating on a bare stem. Now, this is totally healthy growth. This isn't the stretching of the stem from etiolation, lack of light that we talked about before. But some people do prefer to keep their echeveria compact and close to the soil line, like this one here. So in order to prune it, you're gonna do a process called beheading, which is not as gruesome as it sounds, but I'm just gonna take a sharp, clean knife, and I'm going to cut carefully. I'm leaving about an inch or so underneath, and I'm gonna try to do it from this way, actually. And if you see me holding this funny, I'm just trying not to knock off too much farina from the leaves, which is always unfortunate, but would be more unfortunate probably to slice my finger open, so. Okay. So I'm gonna wanna make sure I give this cut time to dry out and callus so that it's not a source of rot and disease for the succulent. But once it is dry, I can start watering it, and it's going to produce little fine pink roots like this. And to help it establish roots, I'm going to want to keep that soil a little bit more fairly kind of consistently damp than I would for a regular established rooted succulent. And I can even keep this old cutting of the rooted stem, and sometimes that's going to produce new offsets right at the point of that cut. It's pretty cool. And then the other method of propagation is going to be leaf propagation. So to do that, I am going to use a big healthy leaf, so kind of a mature one like this here. And I've just pulled it off of the plant. And as I did with beheading, I'm going to keep that on my soil, let the cut callus over, and then once it starts producing those fine little pink roots, I'm gonna start watering it, and it's gonna establish roots in the soil, it's gonna grow new leaves, it's gonna form a whole rosette, it's gonna be magical, and I don't know, I highly recommend everyone tries that process at least once in your life. It's a little slower than the full beheading because this one's already, you know, got a rosette to it, but it's still pretty exciting. Echeveria Perle von Nurnberg is always available at mountaincrestgardens.com. She's pet safe, she's a sun-loving beauty, and it really doesn't take too much from you for her to look good and show some really nice, vibrant colors. Now, I hope all of these tips helped, and if you still have any questions at all, feel free to leave them down in the comments. And until next time, happy succulenting.